Hi, everybody. It's me again. And if you're here because you're really interested in the Office of Integrative Activities, thank you. If you're here because you don't know where else to sit and it's too hot outside, thank you. We're excited to see you in person, and then the folks online, thank you for joining us. We're excited to see you as well. And I think I have one or two people from OIA online. And then I have one person in the room from OIA, Jonathan Friedman, over here. And so we'll have time for discussion, I hope. So before I get started, I wanted to ask, are there any burning questions about OIA or really anything about NSF that you haven't had the chance to ask or get answered? And feel free to walk up to the microphone. You can put silent pressure on everybody. No questions? How many people think they know what OIA is all about? Yep. All right. Well, let the learning begin. All right. I said this yesterday in the granted session, and this is something because NSF wants fabulous ideas to come into the foundation. Right now is a terrific time to apply to the NSF, and we are very interested in receiving proposals all across the agency. So I hope that by attending this meeting, that either you're an investigator, or you're somebody who works with investigators, or you're somebody who supports investigators, that this message is something you will take back and you will encourage others, and that you hope to see the receptivity that we have all across the foundation for bringing in more proposals. All right, so here's kind of the overview of the 45 minutes that we have together, now 42 minutes and 30 seconds. So again, if you have questions, please stand up at the microphones at any time. And then also online, if you have questions, please pose those as well. I'd like to talk about OIA in the context of NSF so that you have an understanding of where we sit. How to engage with NSF and OIA and kind of what does that look like? We do have funding programs in OIA, so I want to tell you a little bit about those. And then we have activities because we are the Office of Integrative Activities or Integrative Activities. And so we have other things we do besides funding. So let's talk a little bit about NSF's organizational structure and where does OIA sit within it. So I like to think of NSF as being like a college or university. And I think it really helps to think of us that way because it also helps you navigate NSF if you kind of think this way. So it doesn't matter that it's a research university or college or university. I think some of these principles are the same. So our directorates are kind of like colleges. They're organized by disciplines or broad sets of disciplines. And so when we started the new TIP directorate, Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships, it's like establishing a new college, an interdisciplinary one at that. But that's kind of the level that we're thinking. And then within each directorate, we have divisions. And so those would be like departments or schools. And I know that schools, depending on the university, might be a college versus a department or something all entirely different. But generally speaking, departments are like our divisions. And then our programs, which really are where we're putting the funding out, those might be like a research program for a faculty member or a project or something like that. So if you think of it that way, we also have the other structures to the university. So within NSF, we have an office of the director would be like the office of the president and all of the leadership connectivity and so on. And then we have other offices at NSF, much like a university has. We have HR, we have our budget and finance, we have the business and administrative functions and so on. So we are very similarly structured. And again, I think if you think of us that way, it's helpful when you're trying to figure out where to go and you have no other way of thinking, well, where would this thing fit? So in OIA, we're actually part of the Office of the Director. 25 years ago, we were formed after some other parts of NSF were trying to come together, and they needed a little boost from the leadership to say this activity is really important. So they created this office, and there are several offices within the Office of the Director, and you can see them listed there, although the font might be kind of small. We have the Office of Policy Legislative Affairs, we have OECR, the Office of Equity and Civil Rights. We have the Office of International Science and Engineering, which is having a parallel breakout right now, in case you're interested in that. So, within the president's office or the director's office, we have these other structures. OIA and OISE kind of operate like directorates at NSF. We get a lot of the same kinds of treatments across the 8 directorates. So there's kind of 10 directorate-like structures at NSF. So we have cross-cutting programs. We're a little directorate-like, a little operations-like. And we're also kind of the hub for the Office of the Director around broadening participation in STEM. So, I talked about Granted a little bit yesterday, and I'll talk about a few other programs in OIA as well. Here's our current list of funding opportunities within OIA and the affiliated acronyms. And of course, we love our acronyms. So we are always happy to spell out those acronyms, but here they are as well. Okay, any questions so far? Online? Crickets? All right.
We have questions, but not yet for what you're talking about. Do you want me to just ask you?
Sure.
Okay. How hard is it says win an MRI proposal award, but how hard is it to get funded for an MRI? Do some proposals get funded with the first submission, or are your chances more, much better? Are they improved if you go with the second or third time around?
Okay. So I'm going to pause to answer that when we get to the MRI program. And so Jonathan's going to help me with things like that. So we'll pause for just a second. I want to make sure that if anybody else wants to come in with any questions. So why are we called the Office of Integrative Activities? How many people like to put puzzles together, like jigsaw puzzles? Okay, you are our people. We like to put things together. Usually things that don't seem to go together, we like to put them together. We sometimes call ourselves inside the Office of Integrative Activities, we call ourselves eclectic generalists. We have a lot of interests and we know a lot about a lot of things. And we can go deep in various areas, but generally speaking, we really like to know all about NSF. We like to know about all of the external communities. We like to understand how things fit together. We like to put those pieces together, and a lot of our funding opportunities are interdisciplinary. We also, again, in service to NSF, do a lot of things where if a program was put into a directorate, there is fear that that program would be too much a silo in that one discipline. So if we want it to pertain to all of NSF in kind of a fair and equitable way, it gets put into OIA, and then we work with all the rest of NSF to make sure that everyone is included. So we practice inclusion and access all the time. And that's why we have also a lot of other programs that are around inclusion and access, much like the rest of NSF, because this kind of behavior is spread out all over, but we make it our specialty. So that's sort of why we do some of the programs that we do, so that everyone has that kind of fair treatment, no matter what discipline they come from. Okay. So let's talk about engaging with OIA. And I've tried to say this in other places. I've heard other people say this as well. OIA has a lot of amazing people who are excited to interact with you, and they are available to assist. So please talk to them. Don't be afraid. Do not be intimidated by people at NSF. I'll say that again. Don't be intimidated by people at NSF. We are very, very friendly people. Now, sometimes you might catch us on a bad day, but please keep trying. And if we also don't respond very quickly, please keep trying, because we do have a lot of work and we're a relatively small agency. So think about it as, you're trying to build a relationship with people at NSF. It takes time, just like it does everywhere else, but you're important to us and we want to help. So please stay resilient and persistent. So everyone at NSF wants you to be successful, and I think you should kind of think of us as partners in your success, not these people who make decisions and cause you grief. You should have hope when you connect with us and see us as partners in your success. So contact us, ask questions, reach out to us. Don't be afraid to sit down. If we're the only person sitting at a table and we look super lonely because no one will come and talk to us, just sit down and talk to us. We're really great. So again, I said earlier that OIA has several interdisciplinary funding opportunities, and we're just an eclectic group of things. So we want to make sure that you see us as an opportunity, even if you're in a discipline. We do, again, work on a lot of ways to communicate out about NSF. And so we have some really cool tools. I'm going to tell you about that in one of the slides. And that'll give you insight into our data at NSF. And then we also provide opportunities to recognize scholars, exceptional scholars out in the external communities, and also opportunities to work with NSF. So I'll talk about that as well. And then we are very active in broadening participation of groups underrepresented in STEM. So if you ever have questions, and actually if you visit OIA's funding or OIA's web pages and stuff, you'll see NSF's entire portfolio of funding for groups underrepresented in STEM. All of our broadening participation work, we organize that on behalf of the agency for everyone else. So we keep the portfolio of funding opportunities up to date and everything that. So one thing I haven't really heard discussed a lot is this portal. How many people have heard of Prospect? Okay, so with the start of TIP, the recognition was that there will be a lot of people engaging with NSF who have never engaged with NSF before. Companies, communities, nonprofits, other people at universities and so on. And so we wanted to make sure that, and again, even though I've said over and over and over again, NSF is very friendly and you should reach out to us, we still know that people think we're maybe not as friendly or we're a little intimidating. So what if you're someone who just has no idea how to get to NSF, to talk to another human, to get the information that you need. And maybe you're just a little intimidated at doing so. Well, this portal is set up to give you a passive way into the agency. So think of it as, I'm a junior faculty member, I'm brand new to doing research, I'm very intimidated by NSF, even though Alicia tells me I shouldn't be, but I don't know who to talk to. And I've got this great idea and I think it's perfect for NSF and I just want a little feedback to be able to move forward, maybe with a proposal, maybe with a planning grant, maybe with something else. So if you go into this portal, the Prospect Program Suitability and Proposal Concept Tool, it is not a way to submit proposals. It's a way to get feedback on ideas before they're ready for a proposal. So if you go to suitability.nsf.gov, you can sign up for access into the portal. The reason why you sign up is once you put your idea in there, you don't want it to just disappear. You want to have a profile and so on to keep track of things. And there are real humans behind this getting your idea. And then if, depending on where you might have directed it, or perhaps maybe you're like, I have no idea where this should go, there are a set of people who know where to push these ideas and get that feedback. So it is that way. Again, I think it's a perfect way if you just really don't want to talk to a person yet, you want to come in and get that feedback. But I wanted you to know it's not an AI system in the back, just stirring up ideas and then popping them out to random people as a result. It's actual humans who are going to see your name, see your idea, read it, and give you feedback. So there's a person assigned in OIA, Dina Stroud, who's part of the granted program. She is our person for OIA to get these ideas and then make sure that they find a place for somebody else to talk about it. So I wanted you to know this exists. Please share it with others. It's available publicly. It's available to anybody to share an idea with NSF. Now you've heard about it. Prospect. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our programs, our funding programs in OIA, and you've probably heard of many of these. So first I want to talk about 2 instrumentation programs. Now there are other instrumentation programs throughout NSF, but these are the 2 that sit in OIA. So both of these programs invest in equipment and instruments required for research excellence, and in the top right corner, we have the 2 program staff who are part of these programs, Randy Phelps, who's online, and Jonathan Friedman, who's here in the room. So thank you both for being here. So the major research instrumentation program, how many people have heard of this, MRI? Okay, good. So MRI is a very visible program. It's been around for many, 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 many years. The website is there. All these slides are in the portal or in the app for the conference, so you should be able to get a hold of this. And there's so much more detail than what I put here on the slide. And basically what I wanted to do was just put up a little information and then ask if there are questions. So get ready to get your questions queued up here really quick. So the MRI program is very much about helping institutions, teams, investigators get access to equipment that they need to be successful in their research. There's a lot of different ways in which to go about doing this. There's a whole lot of strategies around how to be successful. It is the case that the way NSF organizes this, or OIA organizes it, is that we've made it so that all proposals come in one door, and then we work our magic in the background to make sure that the proposals land in the appropriate disciplines to be reviewed. And so that's really fantastic because that makes it easy to submit, and then your idea gets placed in appropriate places. It's not me, Alicia, who's a psychologist, reviewing your microscope proposals. That's not how this works. So it's very much established, and it's a great way in which we do this kind of distribution for review. The other instrumentation program that we have is called Mid-Scale Research Infrastructure Track 1, or 1. And this is kind of covering higher end or higher dollar amount types of instrumentation. There's a lot of different tracks or a lot of different subcomponents to this funding opportunity. So it's very important that you read the solicitation for both of these programs. That's always true, read the solicitation. But generally speaking, questions around these kinds of projects are going to Randy and Jonathan within OIA. So I'm going to pause. What kind of questions people have? And Sam asked questions online already. Have those gotten answered online by any chance?
Yes, Randy answered that MRI question.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Question right here.
For MRI, is a proposal less competitive if your institution has already received one within the last few years?
No.
Even if it's potentially in a similar area?
So if it's asking for the exact same equipment or something very, very similar, and it looks like the university doesn't understand what's going on within its own institution, that doesn't look good. But, and I'll have Jonathan kind of amplify some of what I'm saying, but because remember I talked about how things are distributed out into different disciplines, it could be that one proposal lands in one part of NSF and the proposal, even if it's similar, might land in a different part of NSF, and then it will be reviewed by different people, possibly, if it's year to year, it's gonna be with different reviewers and so on.
Would it be worth spending some time in the proposal disambiguating it from the other previously?
Oh, you already have to do that as part of the proposal content. You have to talk about all your a lot of past MRI awards that you've received, what you've done with them, how successful they've been. And that's something that your institution should keep track of because they're probably the best ones, like in your Office of Research or something, to be able to know all of the MRI programs that have been received by your institution.
Thank you.
And I used to do a lot of work around kind of that coordination at the university I was at. And, we would, this was back when you could submit 3 proposals. We would regularly get 3 proposals awarded. And this was also back when cost sharing was required. And the vice president for research was always a little mad that we got all 3 funded because that was a lot of cost sharing every year. So it is the case that you can be very successful year after year after year. Other questions? Sam.
Yes, going back to prospect. What should you do if you never get any feedback on a prospect submission?
You should contact Alicia Needler in OIA. I know who to talk to. Send me an email.
And could the prospect tool recommend solicitations to apply for?
It could. That could be part of the feedback. Other questions? Okay, well, feel free, even if I'm going to move on from MRI and mid-scale, but if you have questions about those, feel free to ask them again later. Sorry, let me go back. I put down at the bottom that there are other instrumentation programs that are in other parts of NSF, like MPS, SIZE, Bio, Geo, and OD. So there's a track 2 for the mid-scale research infrastructure as well. So just know that these 2 programs are not the only instrumentation programs at NSF. Interdisciplinary programs, and these are very much around the team building associated with doing interdisciplinary work. So again, 2 program officers up there in the right-hand corner, and both of these are ways in which we can change the work of disciplines across disciplinary boundaries. So growing convergence research, how many people have heard of this? GCR, okay? And then the other one is Science and Technology Centers, STCs. How many people have heard of that? Okay, both of these, again, are very much stress multidisciplinary groups working together. GCR is really about growing the capability and capacity to do work together, collaborative team science, convergence, and so on. And then the STCs, if you're just figuring it out, that probably is an STC level. STC level is you've already got it going on with your team. You're crafting excellent work at the boundaries of disciplines. You're crafting new things. And we're really looking to invest in things that will become mainstream 10, 15 years from now. So it's very forward-looking. And there are a lot of people and STCs in particular, and some of OIA's programs have limited submissions. STCs are limited submissions as well because these are big projects. And institutions really need to commit to putting these together. And usually they're cross-institution submissions and so on. There's a lot of work that go into both of these programs. And so I think it's really, really important that if you're thinking about either one of these programs, and again, it takes a long time to build relationships, collaborations, publishing together, showing evidence that you can work together, creating management plans for how you're going to collaborate. All of that takes time and attention and effort. And if you're starting that 3 weeks before the proposal's due, you're never going to get funded. This is years. And that's why the STC in particular, we don't have a competition every year because we recognize how long it takes to build these capabilities. Any questions about either of these programs? Thank you.
Hi, I have one. Is that
Yeah.
okay? So for the growing convergence research, how do you currently evaluate the convergence aspect of it, given that convergence is a fairly new discipline, and especially how did that change from the first GCR programs a few years ago to now?
Right, so I think you should think of convergence as having an evidence base. And if you're just coming in and defining convergence any old way you want to, that's probably not as competitive as if you consult the literature and say, okay, based on this, here's how this team is going to practice convergence. Here's how we're operating within this space. And the other thing that's interesting about the GCR is the funding comes in 2 phases, 2 years up front, and that's so that the team can really practice that convergence. If it is not working out, you don't get the other 3 years of funding. So that's another thing that really you have to put a lot of effort into thinking about how you're going to make this work together, and not just a set of people who promise to work together but can't actually practice that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So use the evidence. There's so much evidence out there now. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep going, and then again, you can ask questions as we go. So I have a couple of slides on capacity building programs, and all of these are focused on helping to build capacity, the knowledge, the capabilities, the skills, the talents that are related in this kind of space that we're seeking proposals. So the first one is the HBCU Excellence in Research Program. This is only for HBCUs. So it's important here to recognize when you are at an HBCU or not. And there are other programs that kind of have similar qualities to this program that are actually in directorates, like research initiation grants in engineering and other directorates. There are a lot of ways in which early career faculty or people retooling their research programs can get funding at NSF. This one just happens to open a different door for HBCUs to come through. They don't have to come through this door, but they can. So that's one program, and we have a lot of different ways in which to help HBCUs be competitive for funding at NSF. And then we have the EPSCoR program. How many people have heard of EPSCoR before? Okay, how many people knew what the acronym stood for? Fewer people, okay. If you really, really, really want to know the EPSCoR history, it used to be that the E was experimental instead of established. That's like old trivia for NSF. And I'll get to your question in just a second. But EPSCoR is for the historically underfunded states, territories, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico for the US. There are 28 EPSCoR jurisdictions. We call it jurisdiction because it's states, territories, and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. So we want to be inclusive that way. And so the EPSCoR program has been around for 44 years now. And which is why it's not experimental anymore, it's established. And so you can see the map there of which states. How many people see there now that they are in an EPSCoR state and they didn't know it? Anybody? Oh, good, at least one person's volunteering that, thank you. So there are opportunities. We have different programs that are available in the EPSCoR program, but I also want to reiterate that because the agency now is very focused on EPSCoR and 20% of our obligations need to go to EPSCoR jurisdictions regularly by 2029. We're kind of building up to that. And so it's really, really important as an EPSCoR coming from an EPSCoR jurisdiction that you see opportunity at NSF, all across NSF, not just the EPSCoR program, but this might be a way to come in and build capacity to be competitive with other programs at NSF. So kind of think of it as an on-ramp in through the EPSCoR program, and then again, still, you don't have to wait, but you can go out to all of NSF with proposals as well. So I see a couple questions here. So over here to my left, or my right.
Would you be eligible for the HBCU one if you're not an HBCU, but your collaborator is?
No.
Okay.
Now, it could be that the HBCU has to take the lead.
Oh.
If you are somehow collaborating with the HBCU, and the investigator and you have a very, either strong track record or something, but then that's going to be based on the proposal and how you set up the budget and whether the program officers approve that. So it's, like we've said before, please contact the program officers to share a bit about what you're thinking before you go through the effort of submitting a proposal.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, over here and then in the middle.
Thank you. Similar question, if you're building a team around a granted proposal and one of them's EPSCoR, is there relationship there?
Well, they're both in OIA, so sure there's a relationship. But granted, so one thing, and I'll kind of get granteds on the next slide too, but I talked about granted yesterday, that Granted has this interesting opportunity. We had capacity building for 44 years in EPSCoR jurisdictions. And institutions that have not been in EPSCoR jurisdictions have said, we have capacity building needs too. What about us? And that's what granted covers. So if you're in an EPSCoR jurisdiction, you can apply for granted. If you're not in an EPSCoR jurisdiction, you can apply for granted. If you're in an EPSCoR jurisdiction, you can apply for EPSCoR. But if you're not in an EPSCoR jurisdiction, you cannot apply for EPSCoR. So that's kind of so granted is covering the non-EPSCoR jurisdictions for capacity building. We're trying to fill a gap there. But EPSCoR, you can still apply to granted. It's not an either or. In the middle and then over here.
Do states ever graduate out of EPSCoR?
States do graduate out of EPSCoR, although that is not our goal. It has happened. So Utah and Tennessee used to be EPSCoR jurisdictions, and they have officially graduated. Missouri and Iowa and New Mexico, at least once, have left and come back, and then left. And so there's a little bit of that. And it actually is the case with CHIPS and Science. They asked us to freeze EPSCoR eligibility for 5 years. So no one is leaving EPSCoR. Sounds threatening, but no one's leaving EPSCoR right now. And no one gets to come in either. So we're just frozen right now. But I will say that if you look online, we always publish like it used to be called an eligibility table so that states knew if they were in or out. But we still publish the same kind of data. It's just not eligibility right now because this is the eligibility on that map right there. But it shows that there are some states that are doing quite well in EPSCoR. Their capacity is building. And should we have eligibility again, a few states might graduate in 5 years. So that would be very exciting. We'll see what happens. Question over here.
So this is related to that second question, and I realize that these EPSCoR determinations are made at the federal level and it's not an NSF specific designation. But I'm curious to why it's at the state level. For example, I'm in North Carolina, and I realize that the Research Triangle gets a lot of money, but we're in Western North Carolina, which doesn't get so much funding. So I'm just wondering why that designation is at the state level.
Well, so I think that you're right. That's kind of a federal congressional kind of thing. And there's probably, even though you have representatives, you don't have senators that are just for parts of your state. So I think that a lot of the Senate, federally, they're not your state, Senate and House and stuff, but at the federal level, they are big proponents of EPSCoR. And so I think that that's my sense of the history. But again, the granted program is available to you all. So even though you're not in an EPSCoR jurisdiction, you can still apply for capacity building opportunities.
Thank you.
Yep. Any questions online, Sam?
A lot to do with MRI, so we're going to let you keep rolling along.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So like I said yesterday, I did present on Granted, and as far as I know, the videos, the slides are available, all that kind of stuff. You can go back. I'm always available for questions. And then Analytics for Equity. How many people have heard of Analytics for Equity? It's kind of a quiet little program we have. And there's a lot of people who are interested in federal data from publicly available, but federal data from agencies. So we worked with the Office of Science and Technology Policy, which is a White House office for advising on science and science policy. And working with OSTP, several federal agencies got together to say, we want to make our data available to researchers, probably more likely social scientists and people who do evaluation and assessment, for them to ask and query these big data sets and see what they might glean from that and interesting things. So on the website that I've given there are projects that have come out of the phase 1. So phase 1 was what we had money for allocated to us in FY23. As you know, we don't yet have, we're so close, the FY24 appropriation. So phase 2 would come along probably, I think, if we do have money for it, it would probably be an FY25 sort of thing as opposed to FY24, but I don't know for sure, so we'll see. And so look for phase 2, but this was an interesting opportunity too, because we made them contracts instead of grants. And a lot of institutions aren't used to doing contracts for research in this way. So we were kind of experimenting around a little bit. And again, it's very much about different federal agencies, including NSF, around their own data. Question? Sam.
Are there any capacity building programs that emerging R2 institutions can apply for?
Yes. Should I name them? Again, I think it's really important not to think about your Carnegie classification a lot of the times. NSF is available to all institutions, nonprofits, and others who are in the eligibility part of the PAPG. So please don't overly restrict yourself based on what Carnegie classification tells you your institution is. You are competitive for NSF funding. Now, do you need to grow some capacity to get better at certain things, to learn to do partnerships, to build some infrastructure and so on? Then yeah, there are some special programs inside of NSF to help you do that. But please don't think that you are not competitive for all of NSF if you come from a particular type of institution. Sam.
Yes. Going back to EPSCoR states, are the qualifications revisited on a regular basis, or is it strictly historical designation making the state, what it's based on?
So the determination for a long time has been prescribed, and Congress has approved it. And so we've kept the same formula, which is described online, about how we determine that. It's a percentage of NSF funding. So if you, I think, get less than 0.75% of NSF dollars, then you are an EPSCoR jurisdiction. And there are 28 of them. So that means that there are 24 states, is that right? Am I doing my math properly? No, 26 states that they get more than 0.75% of NSF's dollars. So do we revisit that often? I don't know that it's often, but it has been revisited in the past. Okay, so here are people. These are people's names and emails. Now you can go to the staff directory at NSF and find anybody at NSF. But again, if you don't know who you're looking for, you just type in Robert or Alicia. There's actually not that many Alicias at NSF. But you can type in first name and find people. You can type in last names and find people. You can look at the organizations and try to sleuth in there. These are the, I already shared with the capacity or the instrumentation and the interdisciplinary programs. I put those on the slides, but here's the rest of everybody else because this was too much information to put on the other slides. I also tagged who's an IPA. An IPA is another name for a rotational program officer. These are people who are on loan to NSF as program staff. And if you have ever wanted to work at the National Science Foundation, I would encourage you to look at our funding our employment opportunities as IPAs. So I put the link there for careers and openings. In OIA, what we like to do is we like to open up our IPA opportunities and not close them down. Because then we never know when it's time for somebody to say, hey, I'm looking for something. And you can come in and be a rotational program officer for a year. They're year-long appointments, and then they can be renewed a few more years after that. I think you can't exceed a total of 4 years as a rotational program officer at NSF. Jonathan would be happy to talk to you about his experience as an IPA, and he's from Puerto Rico. So, we love all sorts of people from all places across the nation. But these are real people, and they will answer your emails. And so please email them if you have any questions. Question over here.
Hi. Did you say that there is no funding opportunity at this time for analytics for equity?
So the phase 1 is done. We've done phase 1. We're waiting for phase 2. We're waiting for the funding to come through before we announce it.
Okay. But only phase 1 participants can participate?
That I don't know because we're waiting to see how much money we get.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've talked about could we have another phase 1 opportunity because that was a small amount of money just to get people started. So it all is contingent on funding. That's a favorite phrase for us.
All right. Thanks.
Sure. But check out the projects that got funded in case you're interested. Okay, I'm running out of time, so let me talk just briefly about other activities in the OIA, the activities part of us. So we recognize exceptional scholars through a couple of programs, the Alan T. Waterman Award, which is $1 million for an early career researcher. This year we made 3 awards, Waterman Awards, to 3 women. First time ever we had 3 women awarded in the same year. And so please check them out. We have videos about their research. They are fabulous. All the awardees are fabulous, but it's so exciting to see people get $1 million in just however you want to use the dollars to support your research and other programs that you want to pursue. And then we also run the National Medal of Science competition for the White House. And so if you ever want to nominate exceptional people for exceptional recognitions, please know that OIA is your one-stop shop to get information. We have webinars all the time. We answer questions. We try to give a lot of information about past recipients. There are definitely kind of things like, if I nominated a person last year, do I have to re-nominate them this year? Especially for the National Medal of Science, which seems to not make an award every year. So we have a little bit of backlog. So if you have any kind of questions like that, I'm happy to answer those. And then working at NSF, we have AAAS fellows who work with us. This is something that, if I could go back 30 years, I would be a AAAS fellow. I think that would be an awesome job. So AAAS fellows, if you have students, postdocs, grad students, early career folks who want to spend some time in research policy and the federal government working in cool research areas, AAAS fellows is the way to go. I think it's a really terrific program. We hire a bunch every year. They sometimes stay with us for a second year. It's a really exciting way to get into NSF and work on cool things. For students, grad students and undergrads, we have Summer Scholar Internship Program. And so they come and spend a few weeks, like 2 months with us, and work on cool projects that we come up with. So we actually have this week the orientation going on for the SSIP students or interns. So if you have students, encourage them to think about applying to this program. We also, if somebody, and this is also students, want to work for the federal government and kind of get in on the ground floor, we have these pathways programs. I think that it also works for postdocs and recent graduates and so on. So check that out again if you have students that you mentor, you have your own kids, whatever you think people would be interested. These are terrific ways to get in the door. And then I talked about the rotational program officers. This, again, if you don't know how this works, we give a grant to your institution, and that gives them money to release your salary to somebody else to kind of take your place, and then we pay for your salary so that you can work for us. So it's a grant to your institution, and then you get released to us. So it's kind of an interesting way to do this. All right, really quickly, some tools to use. If you've ever been curious as to, maybe you know about NSF's award search, so you can look up all the awards that we've made, we have better tools now. NSF by the numbers. So there are ways to look at your state, your institution, the proposals, the awards, the success rate, the money, all sorts of stuff. There's trends from year to year to year. You can dive in, interact with all of these. And then a few months ago, we released this fabulous tool called the Institution Fact Sheet. So if you just go to this link, NSF by the numbers, scroll down to the 5th item on that landing page, and it will say Institution Fact Sheet. You can look up any entity that NSF funds, and you will see 5 years of data, and then also recently active awards and large active awards. This is just so cool to share with other people at your institution. You can dive deep into your directorate. You can look at other directorates and the awards that have been made and so on. All of this data is newly available to the public. And I think this is a fabulous tool if you're trying to look for partners or comparable institutions, or you're just curious, or maybe you're on the job market and you're looking for another institution. So you can just look all across a lot of different data. And so I'm so excited this is publicly available. The director of NSF wanted this, and so we've made it public. So if you have feedback about this, I've already had a few people share some ideas with me. Please let us know. We're so excited to be able to share this with you. And then also, I talked about prospects. We have this cool tool called ETAP. It's called the Education Training Application. That's what it stands for. And so think of it this way. If you have an REU program and you have to use a lot of efforts at your institution to advertise the program to students, recruit students in, select them, keep track of them, and then keep track of how well they did or other kinds of projects they worked on and so on, and you have to build that yourself, don't. Use ETAP. ETAP is a matchmaking tool for students who are looking for opportunities for summer research or even academic year research, and the people who can offer those programs. So we have many students looking for opportunities. We need more opportunities to offer them. So if you've ever thought about doing an REU program or other kinds of programs like this, please think about doing that. The demand for these programs is significant, but the student base is available. And we have really discovered that by starting ETAP and making it available. So if you have any ETAP questions, please let me know. This is what it looks like. I pulled up psychology. I searched for opportunities for psychology, and 3 of them popped up. So I just kind of gave you a screenshot. You can go in and look at all the opportunities that are available before ever signing up for it. So a student can kind of surf around to see what might be available. All right, with that, I have 29 seconds. Other questions? Any questions online? No, okay. Anybody want to ask a quick question. Again, I'm here the rest of today. I do have one slot for like one-on-ones at the very end of the one-on-one session in case you want to seek me out. And I'm happy to answer questions. I'm here tomorrow as well. Thank you for your interest in OIA. And again, if you just got trapped here because there's air conditioning, I'm so glad you learned something, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia.